Something I've been observing for years now, and is probably one of the most powerful truths that separates those who live extraordinary lives from those who remain ordinary. It's not about the big moments. It's not about the dramatic decisions. It's about something so simple that most people dismiss it entirely. I want you to think about water for a moment. Just ordinary water. If I ask you to break a rock with water, you probably think I'd lost my mind. You say, that's impossible. Water is soft, rock is hard. This doesn't make sense. And you'll be right to think that way. But here's what happens when water falls on that same rock. Not once, not twice, but drop after drop, day after day, year after year, that rock begins to crack. Eventually it breaks. Not because the water became harder, not because the rock became softer, but because of repetition, because of consistency, because of the accumulation of small actions over time. This is the principle that governs transformation in every area of human existence. Small disciplines repeated daily create massive change. Not massive disciplines done occasionally. Not extraordinary efforts performed sporadically. But small, seemingly insignificant actions done consistently with patience, with faith, with understanding. I remember meeting a man about 7 years ago. Brilliant mind, incredible potential. He had dreams that will make your head spin. He wanted to build businesses, transform communities, impact nations. Every time we spoke, he had a new revelation, a new strategy, a new vision. And I listened, genuinely impressed by the depth of his thinking. But here's what I noticed. Every 6 months, he had a different focus. Every year, a completely new direction. He was always starting, never building. Always planting, never watering. Always excited about the harvest, but never committed to the daily work of cultivation. 5 years later, I ran into him again. Same brilliance, same potential, same dreams, but no progress. Not because he lacked ability, not because opportunities didn't come, but because he never understood that success is not built in moments of inspiration. It's built in the mundane, repetitive, daily disciplines that most people are unwilling to commit to. Now contrast that with another person I know, not as naturally gifted, not as charismatic, not as intellectually impressive, but this person had one quality that made all the difference: consistency. Every single day, without fail, they showed up. They read for 30 minutes. They worked on their skill. They saved a small percentage of their income. They invested in relationships. They prayed. They reflected day after day after day. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that would make headlines. Just small disciplines repeated daily. Today, that person's life is unrecognizable from where they started. Not because of one big break. Not because of luck. But because those daily deposits accumulated into a massive account of transformation. The person who had all the gifts but no consistency is still talking about what they are going to do. The person who had less natural ability but unwavering consistency is living the life the other person only dreams about. You see, we live in a generation that's obsessed with the spectacular. We want the viral moment. We want the overnight success. We want the miracle that requires no process. We scroll through social media and see people's highlights, their victories, their breakthroughs, and we think that's what I need. One big moment that changes everything. But what we don't see are the thousands of small moments that led to that one visible breakthrough. We don't see the early mornings, the late nights, the days when nothing seemed to be working, the repetitions, the failures, the adjustments, the persistence. Not just any pottery, but pieces that are considered masterwork selling for extraordinary amounts. When someone asked him the secret to his success, expecting some profound philosophical answer, he said something remarkably simple. I make one pot every day. Some days the pot is beautiful. Some days it's not. But I make one pot every single day for 40 years of making one pot a day. Can you imagine? That's roughly 14,600 pots. Most of them nobody will ever see. Most of them probably ordinary. But in those 14,600 repetitions, something happened. His hands learned. His eyes learned. His spirit learned. The discipline of showing up every single day, regardless of how he felt, regardless of whether anyone was watching, regardless of whether that day's work would be celebrated or forgotten, that discipline created mastery. This is what most people don't understand about transformation. They are looking for the shortcut. They are looking for the hack. They are looking for the way to skip the process. But there is no way around this truth. Small disciplines repeated daily create massive change. Not might create, not can create, will create. It's a law as reliable as gravity. Now, I need you to understand something crucial here. When I say small disciplines, I'm not talking about easy things. I'm talking about simple things. There's a difference. Simple doesn't mean easy. Reading for 30 minutes a day is simple. It's not complicated. But it's not easy when you are tired. When your mind wants to scroll through your phone instead. When everyone else is relaxing and you're choosing discipline. That's not easy, but it is simple. Saving 10% of your income is simple. The mathematics is straightforward. But it's not easy when you want that thing right now. When your friends are spending and you're saving. When culture is screaming consume and you're choosing discipline. That's not easy, but it is simple. Praying every morning is simple, but it's not easy when sleep is sweet. When your schedule is pressing. When your mind is already racing toward the day's demands. That's not easy, but it is simple. And here's the beautiful thing about simple disciplines. They are accessible. You don't need special qualifications. You don't need perfect circumstances. You don't need to wait for the right moment. You can start right now, right where you are, with what you have. I've watched people wait years for the right time to start. Waiting until they have more money to start saving. Waiting until they have more time to start reading. Waiting until they feel more spiritual to start praying. Waiting until they have the perfect setup to start building. And while they wait, years pass. Opportunities pass. Life passes. But the person who understands this principle doesn't wait. They start small. Ridiculously small sometimes. Maybe they can't read for an hour, so they read for 10 minutes. Maybe they can't save $100, so they save 5. Maybe they can't pray for an hour, so they pray for 5 minutes. And you know what happens? Those small disciplines, those tiny consistent actions, they begin to compound. There's something called the compound effect. Most people understand it in relation to money. If you invest a small amount consistently over time, it grows exponentially because of compound interest. But this principle applies to every area of life. Your knowledge compounds. Your skills compound. Your relationships compound. Your character compounds. Your reputation compounds. Think about it this way. If you read just 10 pages of a good book every day, that's 3,650 pages a year. That's roughly 12 to 15 books, depending on their length. In 5 years, that's 75 books. In 10 years, 150 books. Most people don't read 15 books in their entire lifetime after they finish formal education. But the person who reads just 10 pages a day, something so small, it seems almost insignificant, becomes one of the most well-read people in their generation. If you have one meaningful conversation with your spouse every day, just 15 minutes of real connection, that's 91 hours of quality time per year. That's more quality time than most couples get in 5 years of living in the same house but never truly connecting. That small daily discipline of intentional conversation compounds into a relationship that most people only dream about. If you learn one new thing about your field every day, just one concept, one principle, one technique, that's 365 new pieces of knowledge per year. In 5 years, you've accumulated nearly 2,000 pieces of specialized knowledge. While others in your field are stagnant, you're evolving, not because you did anything dramatic, but because you were consistent in the small discipline of daily learning. Now, here's where most people stumble. They start with excitement. The first day is powerful. The first week is promising. But then the resistance comes. And it always comes. The newness wears off. The initial motivation fades. The results aren't visible yet. And this is the critical moment. This is where champions are separated from dreamers. Because here's the truth about small disciplines repeated daily. The results lag behind the effort. You don't see the change immediately. You plant a seed today, you don't harvest tomorrow. You make a deposit in January, the interest isn't substantial until years later. You read today, you don't become wise tomorrow. You pray today, you might not see the answer for months. This gap between action and visible result is what I call the valley of disappointment. Is where most people quit. They do the right thing for a week, a month, maybe even 3 months, and when they don't see dramatic change, they conclude the process doesn't work. They abandon the discipline. They go back to old patterns. They start looking for something else, something faster, something easier. But the ones who understand this principle, they keep going, not because they see results, but because they understand the process, they trust the principle. They know that drops of water are hitting the rock even when they can't see the crack yet. They know the seed is germinating beneath the soil even when they can't see the sprout yet. They know their consistent deposits are accumulating even when the account doesn't look impressive yet. There's a farmer I know personally. He owns land that produces abundantly now. But when he started, that land was wild, uncultivated, unproductive. People told him it was a waste, that he should sell it, that he should invest elsewhere. But he had a vision. Every single day, he went to that land. He cleared a small section. He prepared the soil. He planted. He watered. Day after day after day. The first year, he saw almost nothing. The second year, minimal harvest. The third year, still not impressive. People mocked him, called him foolish, said he was wasting his time, but he kept going. Small disciplines, daily actions, consistent effort. By year 5, that land began to produce. By year 7, it was profitable. By year 10, it became one of the most productive farms in the entire region. Now, people come to study his methods. They want to know the secret. They expect some revolutionary technique. And it tells them exactly what I'm telling you. I just showed up every day. I did the work. I trusted the process. That's the power of small disciplines repeated daily. They create massive change. Not overnight, not next week, not even next month, but inevitably, certainly, powerfully. You know what's interesting about this principle? It works in reverse too. Small neglects, repeated daily, create massive destruction. Just as consistency builds, inconsistency destroys. Just as small deposits accumulate into wealth, small withdrawals accumulate into poverty. Just as daily exercise builds health, daily negligence destroys it. The principle is neutral. It doesn't care about your intentions. It only responds to your actions. I've seen marriages that look perfect on the outside collapse suddenly. And everyone asks what happened. They seem so happy. But if you look closely, it wasn't sudden at all. It was small neglect repeated daily. The husband who stopped really listening. The wife who stopped expressing appreciation. The couple who stopped prioritizing time together. Little things seemingly insignificant. But day after day, those small neglects created distance. And distance, when left unaddressed, becomes a canyon that no amount of dramatic gestures can bridge. I've seen businesses that once thrived go bankrupt. And people wonder, how did such a successful company fail? But again, it wasn't sudden. It was small neglects repeated daily. The leader who stopped innovating, the team that stopped serving customers with excellence, the organization that stopped investing in growth, little compromises, small shortcuts, gradual decline, until one day, what was built over years crumbled in months. This is why understanding this principle is so critical. Because every single day, you're either building or destroying. There's no neutral ground. Every day that you practice the discipline, you're moving forward. Every day that you neglect it, you're moving backward. You might not see the movement immediately, but it's happening. There was a musician I came across, not famous by global standards, but highly respected in his field. When people heard him play, they assumed he was naturally gifted, born with extraordinary talent. But when someone asked him directly, were you always this good? His answer was revealing. He said, when I was 12 years old, I made a decision. I would practice for 1 hour every single day. Not when I felt like it. Not when I had time. Every single day for 1 hour. No excuses. He continued. Some days I practice well. Some days practice poorly. Some days I was motivated. Some days I was exhausted. Some days I could see improvement. Some days I felt like I was getting worse. But none of that mattered. The only thing that mattered was that I showed up 1 hour every day. Then he said something that struck me deeply. For the first 2 years, I honestly couldn't tell much difference. I was improving, but slowly. So slowly that sometimes I wondered if I was wasting my time. But around year 3, something shifted. My fingers knew things my mind hadn't consciously taught them. My ears could hear things I couldn't hear before. My understanding of music deepened in ways I couldn't explain. And from that point, every year of consistent practice didn't just add to my ability, it multiplied it. He's now been practicing daily for 34 years. That's over 12,000 hours of dedicated, consistent practice. And people see him perform for 30 minutes and think, wow, natural talent. They have no idea about the 12,000 hours of small disciplines repeated daily that created what they're witnessing. This is what I need you to grasp. What looks like overnight success is usually years of unseen consistency. What looks like sudden breakthrough is usually the compound effect of daily disciplines finally becoming visible. What looks like luck is usually the result of preparation, meeting, opportunity, and preparation only comes through repetition. Now, let me address something practical. How do you actually maintain small disciplines daily? Because understanding the principle is one thing, living it is another. And I've observed certain patterns in people who successfully maintain consistency versus those who constantly start and stop. First, they make the discipline so small that it's almost embarrassing. Most people fail at consistency because they start too big. They want to pray for 2 hours when they haven't prayed for 10 minutes consistently. They want to read 3 books a month when they haven't read 3 pages a day consistently. They want to save half their income when they haven't saved 5% consistently. And what happens? They burn out. They can't sustain it. And then they quit entirely. But the person who understands this principle starts ridiculously small. So small that their ego is almost offended by how small it is. Just 5 push-ups, that's nothing. Exactly, it's nothing. Which means you can do it every single day regardless of circumstances. And here's what happens. 5 push-ups today becomes 6 next week. 6 becomes 10 the following month. 10 becomes 20. And before you know it, you're doing 100 push-ups daily, but you build up to it so gradually that it never felt overwhelming. I know someone who wanted to develop a reading habit, but every time they tried, they buy 5 books, read intensely for a week, then stop completely, start and stop, start and stop. This cycle repeated for years. Finally, they made a decision. I'm going to read just 1 page every single day. Just 1 page. Now, 1 page takes what, 2 minutes? 3 minutes? It's almost nothing. But that was the point. For the first month, they read exactly 1 page, nothing more. And some days that 1 page was hard. Their mind resisted even that small commitment, but they pushed through. Second month, 1 page still, but now it felt natural. Third month, something interesting happened. Some days after reading the 1 page, they wanted to continue, so they did. But the commitment remained 1 page. If they only read 1 page, they still won. Fourth month, they were regularly reading 3 or 4 pages, but celebrating the 1 page commitment. 1 year later, they were reading 30 to 40 pages daily, but it all started with 1 page. One ridiculously small discipline, repeated daily. Second pattern I've noticed, they connect the discipline to their identity, not just their goals. Most people practice discipline to achieve something. I'm saving money to buy a house. I'm exercising to lose weight. I'm studying to get a promotion. And there's nothing wrong with goals. But here's the problem. When you tie discipline only to goals, what happens when the goal is achieved? Or worse, what happens when the goal feels too far away? The discipline dies. But when you connect discipline to identity, everything changes. You're not just someone trying to save money. You're a saver. That's who you are. You're not just someone trying to exercise. You're a person of discipline. That's your identity. You're not just someone trying to learn. You're a lifelong learner. That's how you see yourself. There's a woman I mentored years ago. She struggled with consistency in every area until one day we had a conversation about identity. I asked her, who are you? Not what do you do? Not what you want to achieve. Who are you? She couldn't answer clearly. So we worked on it. She decided she was a woman of excellence, discipline, and continuous growth. That became her identity. From that day, when faced with choices, she didn't ask, what do I feel like doing? She asked, what would a woman of excellence, discipline, and continuous growth do in this situation? And suddenly, consistency became easier, not because the actions changed, but because her identity changed. She wasn't trying to be disciplined. She was being who she already decided she was. Third pattern, they focus on the process, not the outcome. This might sound contradictory, but it's profound. The people who succeed long-term fall in love with the daily practice itself, not just what the practice produces. They find meaning in the repetition, joy in the consistency, pride in the showing up. There's a man I know who's been journaling every night for 23 years, never missed a day. When people ask him why, expecting some deep philosophical reason, he simply says, because it's what I do, it's part of who I am. The bearer day doesn't feel complete without it. He's not journaling to become a writer. He's not journaling to achieve some specific outcome. He journals because the act itself has become meaningful. The discipline itself has become the reward. This is the shift that has to happen for long-term consistency. You have to reach a point where you do the thing because it's who you are, not just because of what it will get you. You pray because you are a person of prayer, not just because you want answered prayers. You read because you are a learner, not just because you want knowledge. You exercise because you are disciplined, not just because you want a certain body type. When this shift happens, consistency stops being a struggle. It becomes natural, automatic, part of your rhythm. Now, I want to address the elephant in the room. What about when you fail? What about when you break the streak? Because you will. Life happens. Sickness comes. Emergencies occur. Circumstances beyond your control interrupt your consistency. Does that mean you failed? Does that mean you have to start over? Absolutely not. And this is crucial. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is direction. If you're consistent 90% of the time, you're winning. If you miss one day and get back on track the next day, you're winning. The only way you lose is if you let one missed day become 2, then 3, then a week, then you've quit entirely. I know someone who maintained a prayer routine for 2 years straight, every morning, without fail. Then one morning, due to an emergency, they missed it. And their first thought was, I broke the streak, I failed. They felt so discouraged that they almost stopped entirely, but then they realized something, they hadn't failed. They had succeeded 730 times and missed once. That's not failure. That's a 99.8% success rate. So they got back to it the next day. And you know what? That one missed day didn't destroy 2 years of consistency. The discipline they built, the habits they formed, the character they developed, all of that remained. The compounding didn't reset to 0. It just paused for a day. This is the perspective you need. Small disciplines repeated daily create massive change. Not small disciplines done perfectly. Not small disciplines without interruption. Small disciplines repeated, mostly daily, consistently over time. That's what creates transformation. And here's the final thing I want you to understand. This principle applies to every single area of your life simultaneously. You don't have to choose between physical health and financial wisdom. You don't have to choose between intellectual growth and spiritual depth. You don't have to choose between career success and relational intimacy. You can have small disciplines in multiple areas, all compounding at the same time. Imagine someone who reads 10 pages daily, prays 15 minutes daily, exercises 20 minutes daily, has one meaningful conversation with their spouse daily, learns one new thing in their field daily, and saves 10% of their income daily, 6 small disciplines, none of them overwhelming, but all of them compounding simultaneously, in 5 years, that person is unrecognizable, physically healthier, financially stronger, intellectually sharper, spiritually deeper, relationally richer, professionally more valuable, not because of one big change, but because 6 small disciplines repeated daily created massive change in every dimension of their life. This is available to you right now, today. You don't have to wait for perfect circumstances. You don't have to wait for more time. You don't have to wait for more resources. You can start with what you have, where you are today. Pick one small discipline. Make it so small you can't fail. Connect it to your identity. Fall in love with the process. And commit to repetition. 30 days from now, you'll be glad you started. 365 days from now, you'll be amazed at the progress. 3,650 days from now, your entire life will be transformed. Not because you did something spectacular, but because you understood this eternal principle. Small disciplines repeated daily create massive change. The question is not whether this principle works. It does. It always has. It always will. The question is whether you walk the principle, whether you trust it enough to commit to it, whether you be consistent enough to see it through, whether you have the faith to keep going when results aren't visible yet. Because I promise you this, if you commit to small disciplines repeated daily, change is not just possible. It's inevitable. It's guaranteed. It's already done. You're just waiting for time to review what consistency has already secured. So start today. Start small. Start simple. But start and don't stop. Let the days turn into weeks. Let the weeks turn into months. Let the months turn into years. And watch as your life transforms in ways you never thought possible. Not through one miracle moment, but through thousands of small, consistent, daily disciplines that compound into the life you were always meant to live. That's the power you hold. That's the opportunity before you. That's the truth that can set you free from the frustration of inconsistency and launch you into the reality of transformation. Small disciplines repeated daily create massive change. Live it. Believe it. Watch it unfold in your life.